Hi guys, Sci-Fi Recapped here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain a science fiction and thriller movie, called Minor Premise. The movie begins with Ethan Kochar, a brilliant neuroscientist who's currently mourning both personal and professional losses because his father, Paul, died some time ago just before completing the project, and the credit for breakthroughs they made together is going mostly to the dead man. Later on, we see Ethan is replaying his memory with his ex-girlfriend, named Allie, in front of his students. He then explains that it is possible because of his invention, R9X allows data transfer from our brain to external drives. He states that before he took over, the R9X could only show very blurry pictures. Because of that groundbreaking work, Ethan wants to take his research for the next device, R10, to the next level, which enables us to isolate sections of the brain that impact emotions or behavior. Ethan's belief is that the same emotional markers that fine-tune these blurry images might also serve as a roadmap through a person's consciousness. Finding them means isolating them. Isolating them means manipulating them. In the future, he will be able to erase trauma, subdue triggers, and reorganize brains to become their perfect version. The next day, Ethan attends the awarding ceremony of the outstanding R9X discovery. There, the co-creator of the R9X and also Ethan's dad's friend, Dr. Malcolm Bloom, gives an opening speech, saying that Paul was a very brilliant and smart person. Malcolm then approaches Ethan and tells him that the next day Ethan has to present his R10 progress to the committee, but Ethan is not ready as he has not found the right equation for the device. At night, Ethan is approached by his ex-girlfriend while drinking alone. We discover that she was the early programmer for the device. She knows Ethan has to present tomorrow and wants to help him to prepare, but is rejected. Ethan gets back to his home in a very messed up condition and finds one of his dad's old notebooks on the table. While talking to his mom and reading the book at the same time, he suddenly discovers an equation written on a hidden page of the book, realizing that it must be the equation he has been seeking for. Running out of time for tomorrow's presentation, he rushes to his basement lab and starts typing the equation into the device's program. Suddenly, a calibrated map of his brain containing 10 sections appears on the screen, with each of them showing unique characteristics. One of the sections, Section 5, which he claims to be his core intellect section, is labeled. He is going to isolate Section 5 and attenuate the others for an hour, hoping that the intellect section will be dominant and will make him smarter. After completing the code, he decides to try the beta version of the device on himself. 3 minutes later, he wakes up and feels no discernible boost in cognitive awareness as nothing happened. He suddenly falls asleep at the lab. The next day, he finds himself waking up in the living room. It is already 10 a.m. and he realizes that he is late for the presentation. But when he walks out of his house, he suddenly feels dizzy and blackout. Suddenly, he finds himself standing in front of a strange painting on the whiteboard. When he looks at his phone, it is already 11 a.m., discovering that he has just experienced a full memory loss for an hour. Only awake for 5 minutes and 55 seconds, he starts to feel dizzy again and blackout. The scene jumps to an hour later. Ethan is talking with her mom on the phone when he suddenly sees 2 cigarette stubs at the toilet and he looks confused. We know that Ethan has already stopped smoking a while ago. He then goes blackout again. Ethan wakes up and confusingly finds the security system has been set up around the house. On the camera footage, he discovers that his body was moving randomly when he went blackout. We then go back to the previous scene when Malcolm visited Ethan to see what happened to him because Ethan did not respond to his message. Surprisingly, he sees Ethan is smoking as he is a different person. Ethan won't let Malcolm come in, so he threatens Ethan, saying that he will involve the police if Ethan doesn't cooperate. But suddenly, Ethan attacks Malcolm by injecting something into his neck. The real Ethan wakes up again, this time finding himself in the basement lab. He opens a recording of himself at 1:32 p.m. He finds out that that version of himself is the one who set the security camera to track his behaviors. He explains that instead of suppressing emotions, they have isolated them, making it split into 10 sections, including the default, which is the real Ethan. He goes blackout again and wakes up, finding Allie locked in a room. Ethan asks her why she is here and she says that Ethan is the one who locked her in. In the middle of the conversation, Ethan suddenly feels dizzy and asks her again the same question, making Allie confused. Before Allie leaves, Ethan confesses that he now has 10 personality sections, which shifts from one section to another every 6 minutes and will repeat every hour. Because of that, he asks for Allie help, hoping that they can figure out what really happens. The clock displays 5 a.m., it is when the default Ethan comes back. He then continues his previous explanation that his primary self is only conscious for the first 6 minutes and then he will go blackout, leaving his other, newly isolated personalities to wreak havoc he can't remember for the other 54. A video of the intellect section, the smartest ones, pops up again, stating that the headache while shifting is going to get worse and worse. Thus, they have to figure out the reintegration as soon as possible. He also commands Ali to get back at 6.30 because it is the time when the intellect section takes place. Now Ali's job is to discover the other 8 sections. Long story short, Ali manages to map all the sections, excluding section 8. They then observe the section 8 behavior from the recording video, finding that he is the exact same as the default version, except the section 8 smokes. He also spots that section 8 reads a notebook, but when he tries to examine the book, the 6 minutes duration has ended and he goes blackout. When Ali tries to message Malcolm, she suddenly hears a vibrating phone voice from one of the rooms, shockingly discovering Malcolm is locked in that room. Ali questions Ethan, but they assume that it was section 8 who locked him up. She tries to call the police, but is rejected by Ethan, saying that they will go to the prison and the work will be useless. He suggests wiping all Malcolm memories after the 10 South African Rand is ready. Moving to another scene in the basement lab, we see that Ethan's condition is getting worse. On recording, the intellect section states that the highest functioning ones will be experiencing the worst side effects and they still have 6 hours left before the brain is fully dead. He also finds out that all this time Ali has been talking to the intellect section without telling him. The only way is to find the right equation so that the brain will reintegrate and reboot. Ethan and Ali do an examination of the lab's equipment, finding out that the cooling system is broken. They try to fix it with duct tape, hoping that it won't burn. When they examine the book to see the equation that was written by the intellect, they find that the page has been ripped by someone, presumed by section 8. Ali examines the calibrated brain map of section 8 and finally figures out that section 8 is a psychotic section, who is going to try to map himself across Ethan's consciousness. Ethan then goes blackout again, but this time he manages to push through, adding 6 more minutes for the default Ethan. Because they can't get back the missing page and the intellect is already too sick to help, they have to rewrite the equation from the beginning. Suddenly, Ethan recalls his memory and figures out that there is another equation which he wrote during the blackout. They finally find the right equation, but there are still 15 seconds left before the blackout. The default Ethan finally discovers that all this time Malcolm has been sedated and locked in the room by section 8. Ethan becomes panicked and states she has let the intellect use her. He urges Ali to run the memory wipe procedure immediately and let Malcolm out. But when they start the procedure, the device is overheated, frying Malcolm's brain. But fortunately, he is still alive. The scene moves to another cycle. This time, when the default Ethan watches a video recording, he discovers that the section 8 already figures out how to push through, making him more dangerous and the reintegration procedure must be done immediately. When Ali comes back, she is approached by Ethan and he asks Ali to give the final equation. Luckily, Ali figures out that it is actually the section 8 Ethan pushing through. Ethan insists, but Ali manages to hit his head with a wine bottle. Knowing that section 8 Ethan will escape from the room, she tries to manipulate him by changing the clock. Section 8 Ethan manages to escape and input the equation to the computer program. Ali knows that she needs to buy some time until the next cycle so that the reintegration will occur to the default Ethan, so she decides to kiss him and Ethan is shifting just in the right time. The situation finally goes back to normal. Ethan is no longer having the blackouts. He decides to pass over the project to Ali and Ali is the one who gets the credit at the university awarding ceremony. At the end of the film, Ethan visits a building which is named after his father. But something is strange, because Ali then spots Ethan who starts smoking, indicating that it is not the default Ethan, but actually still the section 8 who managed to push through again. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.